Welcome back to Sonic 4 episode, and now we're doing Mad Gear Zone. Totally not Metropolis Zone. And guess what, guys? Oh, never mind. I'm mixing up my acts. We'll wait till how the Act 2 starts. But yeah, let's continue. From this point on, there will be no more prototype footage because we've extended all the interesting stuff on the prototype. We'll just do the PS3 version for now.
You think that they will reserve the rotate to the stage with the motion control with the stage that is called gear, but no.
It's because, remember, this is Metropolis Zone, and Metropolis Zone is one of the last few zones of Sonic 2.
The slicer.
Fucking slicers. Yes, because if there's one thing from Sonic 2 that we needed to bring back for nostalgia, it was definitely the fucking slicers.
I mean, I like slicers.
Well, good for you, because I don't.
Did we actually came back for Generations, though?
No, there's no Metropolis Zone in Generations 2. So the slicers are bad next that are exclusive to the Metropolis Zone.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Like, we've seen them in some other zones in later games.
Like what?
Well, we literally see them in the Silent Forest Zone.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Joe. I usually tend to forget that that game exists because it's so bland and forgettable to me. So.
Well, for me, Sonic Crossroads one of the good ones, so don't worry, I remember it just fine. Also, they showed up in Sonic Pocket Adventure.
Well, that game is literally just Sonic 2 with Sonic free music, so...
Well, it's Sonic... There's, if I recall correctly, it actually does have some bits that are from Sonic 3.
Most of the level tropes are taken from Sonic 2.
Yeah, like I remember what Johnny mentioned in his review that Robotnik starts with the classic design but ends with the Adventure 1.
Yeah.
Supposedly, maybe the idea is that Pocket yeah, I guess part of the idea with Pocket Adventure is that this shows Eggman's character development into the more modern design, where he is more willing to be called Eggman and take it on as a badge of pride.
You know,
which is apparently gone.
By the way, Sega, that's another Sonic game you could consider re-releasing. Just saying.
Again, apparently there are some minor squabbles because the ties are shared with SNK.
Are they?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Remember, it was the game that SNK asked to be commissioned for the Neo Geo, and the trade-off, remember, was that arcade.
I was hoping.
Metal Slug 6.
I was hoping that.
That would explain that.
I was hoping that the rights by this point would have expired. Fuck me! Fuck off!
Wow, really?
Yeah, that's basically, if you're playing a Super Sonic and Mad Gear Zone, be careful because if you're not careful, you might get crushed because of those things.
That's admittedly something you had to watch out for in the classics as well.
Yeah. Sure.
I can kind of get why they did that. Doesn't mean you have to like it. I digress. But yeah, no, unfortunately, Pedro, again, thanks to good old Disney, copyrights is a lot more complicated than it needs to be, unfortunately.
Also, when it comes to, I guess it still, Pocket Adventure still feels a bit better as a transition.
I guess, but... No, go on.
No, go on.
No, Tio, go on.
Go ahead, Tio.
I forgot. Whatever.
You were mentioning about how Sonic Pocket Adventure feels like a better transition to Future Robotnik.
Right, well, I think, because from what I remember being told, the equivalent that would happen in it, I think it was the British Sonic the Comic, happened when during the middle of the adaptation of Sonic Adventure, where back then he was having the Adventure Sonic the Hedgehog design, and apparently what the transition was, he changed the jacket in between panels.
Oh, that's Archie you're thinking of, I think.
Okay.
Okay. The way it goes in Archie, I get it, this is when Penders was writing it. Essentially, so, Eggman in the main Sonic timeline had actually died. So what happened was that an eviler, more vicious Robotnik from an alternate timeline had come over. But the twist was that he was...
Check this out. Oh, never mind. It's in Act 3 that they do it. Never mind. Carry on, Jova.
Okay.
The twist was like, well, he was kind of like a metal robot, wherein he was completely cybernetic underneath. So he had with him a entire closet of different skins he could wear, from a muscular-looking Eggman to one from Sad AM, and also from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. And eventually he settled on the new body for him, which would be, of course, Modern Eggman.
Also, of all the zones in episode 1, Mad Gear is probably the least inspired one, because at least the other ones try to have some kind of original gimmicks here and there, even if they're not the best. This one, I guess this wheel is meant to be the new gimmick, but as a level gimmick, it's not particularly impressive. Everything else...
It's not much different from the boulders from the previous zone.
Yeah, it's not that different from those.
To give it credit, it does have a difference in, like, how the tilting works, and, like, the idea is, like, well, in that one you move forward to propel it, where in this one you run in the direction opposite of the way you're propelling it. But, yeah, there is quite a bit of similarity.
Very similarly still.
Not just that, the big problem is that Mad Gear Zone is literally just Metropolis Zone. They don't even try to implement, like look at Casino Street. They at least implemented the card gimmick to it. Mad Gear doesn't even try to disguise the fact that it's just a rip-off of Metropolis Zone.
It's got the gears, I guess.
I guess, but the Metropolis also had gears too. I mean, they weren't designed exactly like this, but I mean,
I don't really recall its gears being as pronounced as this. Now, the slices are definitely a dead giveaway, I'll give you that, but...
Go on, too.
I mean...
I think it's mostly the entire enemy roster, it's not just like the starfish and the crabs, but...
also, it's bright green.
Lie him. But honestly, why are the brown cogs moving with that kind of slow frame rate?
Because...
Like, I get the idea, they're supposed to move slower than, you know, the other cogs and everything, but they're so dissonant in how they're presented.
I don't know what to tell you.
Because they're supposed to look offhand and very uncomfortable when they're doing that, to give them a sense
yes,
of...
or maybe because they give you a platforming challenge of some kind, because you're supposed to stand in between the dance. I don't know.
That is possible as well.
I love it. For the entirety of it, that ascension you get putting multiple rooms with multiple slicers.
Yes,
yes.
Time to put your
Mad Gear
combat to the test.
In the meantime, I need to correct myself. I was mistaking this for the Mad Gear act of Episode Metal. We'll have to... So, let's just say the way Episode Metal starts is, interesting. The point is, yeah, let's continue. Now, it's Mad Gear, but it's dark! They took it's like what Big Rigs does. It's like Devil's Passage, but only in the dark.
Okay, I'm gonna give him credit. This one still is way more inspired than Big Rigs.
Well, that's not even a contest. Obviously, I'm just making a comparison on the whole same thing but dark thing.
But yeah, I guess I'll grant you that Mad Gear is definitely the one most blatant to what it's inspired by. Yeah,
it's the zone that I look forward to the least, because it's just not that much interesting stuff to this. Like the double zone is very blocky and doesn't allow for speed that much, aside from of course those scripted tunnel bits.
Those gears are chugging, huh?
Yeah.
I noticed that too.
No, now that you pointed it out, and it's like, it's kind of distracting, actually.
Like, I get it, they're supposed to move slow, but why the slow frame rate?
Teo pointed it out, and now Shiroi can't unsee it.
I had always noticed that, and I chalked it up to...
Oh, well, just questioning what happened to the wall.
Yeah, that wall is... rubber banding.
Well, to be fair, this is a typical gimmick from classic Sonic games, so...
Yeah,
not just classic Sonic games, like you see this in tons of games with impending walls of doom.
I'm pretty sure there are also at least a couple, as early as a Mario, game could have these, maybe Mario 2, I forgot.
Doesn't the one in the OG Metal Sonic boss fight from Mania also do that?
Fuck.
So.
Bottomless dimps and your bottomless pits!
In Plus, it's replaced by the...
A giant metal Sonic.
Yeah, as a reference to Knuckles Chaotix. Although
Yeah, at least in,
less
Knuckles
terrifying for some reason.
At least in episode 2, you have like giant warning signs warning you of buttons.
Yeah, they use the signs from Generations, yes.
You could just not have them there. Make
You
it
know-
water instead.
But I got them in it. So what if you think this is relief? The other ones like don't have the sides.
It's like people with different taste with.
Imagine.
Wait. That is crazy talk that you just said right there, too. I think I might have to kill you.
Also, do it well, to be very much before.
But yeah, no, you know, one thing I always have a laugh about is, so Sonic 4 Episode 2 addresses the criticism that, you know, fans had for this game. You know, it plays a lot better. It is legit more fun. So of course that's the one that critics hated of the two. It's like
It made no
again, I
sense.
just love it.
No, I think I might have a slight idea. Maybe the music drove them mad.
Okay, if I'm going to give
Screw you.
If I'm going to give them the highest benefit of the doubt, Generations raised the bar when it comes to doing classic Sonic gameplay, so by the time Sonic 4 Episode 2 came out, it just didn't hold up, because while Sonic 4 Episode 2 is indeed better than this, by the time it came out, Episode 2 was just too little too late. By that point, fans just didn't care anymore.
I'd agree with that if it weren't for the fact that, you know, their criticisms were completely the opposite of what they suggested with Sonic 4 Episode 1 being a step in the right direction. Like, the thing was, critics were calling out Episode 2 for stuff that seemed kind of insane. Like, oh, now you're talking about how it feels like these are zones too familiar, except no, Episode 2 actually made an effort to make zones
Also,
that were different.
And don't think... I got this.
Also, to respond to Shiroi's point, I'm sorry, but 85% of the tracks in episode 2 are really forgettable. 10% could
I
have
was
been
joking,
decent,
and
but
also
were
I don't
ruined
remember
by
the soundtrack either.
Oh, look at those
10% could have been
Spectrum
decent, but were
involved.
ruined by the sound fonts, and 5% were like the some were like the few somewhat good tracks in the game.
Can I talk how- I've already talked about Sonic's
I'm gonna
model.
have to disagree on that then, because no, Episode 2 definitely has a much better soundtrack than Episode 1. But what were you about to say, Pedro, in correlation?
Well, first Pedro.
Can I talk about how... Okay, we've talked about Sonic's model. Can I talk about how I absolutely hate the Eggmobile and Eggman models too? Because just like with Sonic's model, it looks so fucking cheap and ugly. Like... While Sonic's model for Episode 2 is much better, the Eggman model is still the same from Episode 1. So
Also, isn't this the same boss, final boss of the one of Advance 1?
no, yeah, I think you're. No, it's Sonic Advance 2 that has the running bosses too. Yeah, this is basically that final phase is basically a Sonic Advance 2 style of boss battle, because it's in Sonic Advance 2 that they have running bosses.
Yeah, dimps.
Yep.
I mean, to be fair, running bosses with Sonic were a thing even before Dimps made them a thing in Advance. Oh wait, no, Advance 2 came out before Heroes.
Yep.
So technically Dimps were the first to do it, but it's not exclusively a Dimps thing.
It's not, but they were the ones who beat Sonic Team to the punch.
Anyway, you were saying to you?
Again, we're getting the end of the game, don't worry, I know where to reprise.
Alright, now a little Sega Genesis style cutscene.
Did you just give Sonic the finger?
I mean, isn't there a still of Sonic X where Eggman does that?
Alright, notice this here.
I mean, Sonic gave him the finger in the OVA.
Thanks for the rocket, Tails!
Yeah, so, apparently Tails knew that Sonic was going to need a rocket right here in this specific spot.
I can buy it. Tails is a genius like that.
Maybe he has rockets.
Alright,
like,
so
across the island.
taking a cue from Sonic Advance 2's final zone, we're going to now have a boss rush of all the bosses. Forgot the game. Carry on, too.
You know, it's funny that It's funny, this reminds me a bit of Sonic Advance 1's boss rush in the sense that, while it did have a boss rush, they were bosses that were essentially references to the classics, but bosses that had not shown up in the game prior.
But in Advance 2, it's boss rush of the actual bosses from the rest of the game. So, hold on, there's that Teo finish. Go on, Teo.
Sorry. Well, again, connect to this was saying in regards to, journalists being discouraged by the music. Don't take it too much of a, it's not a possibility. After all, remember, when Devil May Cry 5 came out, one of its major features is that the better you are at the game, the better, the music is. So of course, if you still keep having like D rank or something, you will not hear the track in full force. And people predicted that, journalists will complain about the music because they actually not good at playing the game.
Yeah.
And lo and behold,
Honestly,
Gamer took the bait, line and see.
Honestly, I'm willing to believe that that the critics who played Sonic Unleashed always got E ranks and everything, and only heard the crappy version of the fanfare. So go on.
Okay, not only that, but that's the thing though. If the music in episode 2 supposedly drove them crazy, then I'm sorry, episode 1, which has a way worse soundtrack, should have affected that, but it didn't.
Alright, let's not get into the soundtrack again. Go ahead, Liz. What you were going to say?
I was just going to say, I was only half joking, but
It's hard to tell sometimes with you.
But to be fair, I too would go crazy if this was the only boss theme I heard 60% of the time.
Yeah, I will at the very least agree that they should have come up with a more proper boss theme rather than just using the pinch theme of this game only, because
they did. Oh, right. You're talking about episode 2.
Yeah, in episode 2, the boss theme is just the pinch theme of this, and they should have come up with a more proper boss theme aside from reusing the pinch theme. Except
there are multiple boss themes. There's the one for Eggman, there's the one for Metal Sonic, there's Metal Sonic's Final Challenge, there's Hedgehog's Final Challenge, so there's actually 4 different boss themes. So the pinch music only shows up for 2 bosses.
Well, but let me ask you this though: if this game has, if every battle with Eggman has 2 boss themes, why can't the boss battles against Eggman also have that? Because you'll remember that when we fight the first boss of episode 2, it's just a pinch theme. Why couldn't they repeat the same formula from this episode? For variety's sake.
I'm guessing because a lot of fans didn't really like what was going on with episode 1, and their logic was
June,
go with the one that they liked more.
Well, June, the solution is to come up with a better theme, not to just remove it. Just saying.
I mean, granted, as somebody who actually likes the episode 2's remix of the pinch music boss theme, I'm fine with it.
I guess, but the problem is that, again, the pinch theme is just yet another 10-second loop of a track instead of going on for... Again, I'm so glad Thiago is doing music for Superstars, because if only we could have gotten him for this game. Yeah, he is. But I'm really... I just really want... hopefully Nafumi Atai is there too.
The thing is, Jun Tsunoi can do classic stuff. He's been around technically as long as Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and I will definitely speak in Sonic 4 Episode 2 soundtrack's favor more so. I'm not gonna act like it's completely perfect. It does have its fair share of duds here and there.
Even then...
But I will...
Sorry, go on.
But I will hold that it's overall a good one. Not the best, but a good one.
Even then, when you take a listen to the Team Sonic Racing soundtrack, it shows how obvious it is that Jun is at his best when he's doing music for modern Sonic. I just wish they could let him make another one again for a change.
Once again, Ravonic outruns Sonic.
Yep.
I guess at least this one they argue he had a running start, so...
Oh, there's a Death Hacker robot.
Okay, to give him credit, they did massively change up how the fight with the Death Egg Robo goes.
Yes, for one you have rings. Although I will say I prefer the Generations version of this plot over this.
Admittedly, that one's a lot easier because it's a much earlier boss in that case, but
that one has a lot more to it, though.
I guess I can get what you mean, it's a lot more,
There's a lot more to it. You have
to blend into
Hold on. it's got a lot more spectacle to it, admittedly. That being said, this fight is pretty good. Like, I guess whereas that fight is easier but has more spectacle, this one is a lot more simple in the spectacle, but a lot more complex in how you deal with the boss, essentially.
I guess if you're talking about the second phase, the pinch phase, I guess. But this initial phase is just me jumping on him over and over. I don't really. The homing attack and the higher jump definitely makes this boss a bit. When it changes to the pinch phase, then yeah, it definitely becomes a lot more interesting. In fact,
well, hence why I'm referring to the fight as a whole.
Okay.
Speak of the devil.
Alright, so...
Also, when he crossed you there, I could have sworn that you were just out of range.
Honestly, the only part of this boss that's actually difficult is the final strike, where they pull a Sonic Adventure 1 with the... Watch out, he's up to something. Aside from that, it's the fact that you have rings makes this boss pretty easy. Basically, what you have to do is this: you have to hit the vent and go back at him, and then the force field disappears. Now you can hit him again. There we go.
I will have to say that for the final boss, this team is a bit weak, especially if I'm reminded what the original Defect Robot team was for Sonic.
Oh no, I mean, Masato Nakamura's music completely wipes its ass with this soundtrack. That's not even a question.
Yeah, like, I mean, granted, I'm not even really that favorable with Episode 1 soundtrack. It's Episode 2 soundtrack I'm more in favor of. Like, again, I acknowledge Junshino can do good with classic style tracks. But I also do agree that, for whatever reason, classic style tracks are not always his strongest suit, and I get it. This was his first one being completely in charge, but this final boss scene, again, it's not even that it's bad, it's just that it doesn't soar like Sonic soundtrack.
Well, technically... Joe, but this is his second, because technically the Sonic 3D Blast Genesis soundtrack was his first time being in charge of a classic Sonic soundtrack. I know that 3D Blast is a spin-off, but it's composed very much like a Sonic soundtrack of the time anyway.
Wasn't that one good?
Yeah, it was. So that's what's most baffling, because Sonic 3D Blast on the Genesis has fantastic music. So you'd think the music on the... I really get the feeling that June got very used to using real instruments and doing the rock stuff, that he kind of, he became very rusty when it comes to doing synth music. I mean, that's why I've always been asking, like, please let the man make another modern soundtrack again for a change. Like... Why is he only remember this is
on even more.
Remember, this is the guy who was the sound director for the adventure games, some of the most beloved soundtracks in not just in Sonic, in gaming in general. And yet here he is being for like more than a decade at this point being relegated to only either spin-offs or 2D games.
I mean, do we know for certain that he's being regulated and that it's just not his own choice?
Well, if it's his own choice, then I have to disagree with his choice, because that's not where you excel, my dude.
I mean, again, we do know he had involvement with Sonic Frontiers' vocal songs and
vocal director,
so he definitely still has a place with them. And hey, given how great those songs are, it shows that he's definitely there.
I just wish we could get another soundtrack in the vein of the adventure soundtracks again.
That's what Sonic Frontiers was.
Well, but Sonic Frontiers has a lot of ambient music, though. I want super duper... Okay, how about this, Jova? You know the music that plays in the bosses, the songs? Make the whole soundtrack like that. I want an entire soundtrack like that.
I mean, yeah, the bosses are like that. Oh, but you also want...
The entire soundtrack. The entire soundtrack to be like that. That's what I want.
I guess we get some rock music for some of the stages as well. Like, I feel like I do like the mix they've got. Like, you got stuff for your adventure fans and stuff for your modern fans in terms of soundtrack. I feel it's got a good balance.
Also, if you bother to copy-paste the ending of Sonic 1, you might as well copy-paste the music too.
Why would they do that though? Those stages haven't featured in this
I was
game.
saying the ending of Sonic.
No,
1.
he means he was expecting like a remix of the ending theme of Sonic 1
Like,
for that
again,
scene.
if you bother to copy paste elements from previous, I mean, sure, you can tell that Mad Gear is its own level, even if it's very similar to Casino 90s. But if you're gonna have, if it arrives at the point where you really lift things from the past, in a direct manner, might as well remix, the existing themes, like T. Lopez did for Mania. Just saying.
I mean, that's the thing.
That
They're
will help the soundtrack.
Maybe or maybe not. The point was that, look, for as much as we joke about how these are clear copies, they were essentially marketing these as different zones, so with different zones come different leitmotifs.
My thing with that,
Sorry. Which is interesting because T. Lopes did his own remix of Sonic 4 Episode 1.
And it's much better than the actual track, yeah. But yeah,
I forget if it was just Splash Mountain he did, or
Splash
if he did
Hill.
one for
Splash Mountain is something degenerated.
no, it was only Splash Hill. It was only Splash Hill Act 1, if I remember correctly. No, see, let me just put it in the simplest terms that I can. Like, for example, for example, the theme of Chronos Island. I would have preferred something more akin to the theme of Mystic Ruins over that. Like something that's more like the theme of Ares Island. I would have preferred something akin to the desert stage theme from Sonic Unleashed. Something more energetic. Like, I don't really like ambient stuff in like that they're going for personally, but that's just me. It works for what they're trying to do. So when I think of Sonic music, I think of music that is energetic, full of energy. Because that's like, we take a look at the classics, take a look at the adventure games, that's usually how it is, so... But that's just me. I can understand what they were going for, it's just that it's not really what I personally want out of my Sonic music.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I said, I may dig Episode 2 soundtrack, but I rarely come back to Episode 1 soundtrack for a listen.
One thing that I miss as well, Jova? Vocal themes of in levels themselves. When we're gonna get a new Escape from the City,
I mean, Frontiers literally gives us vocal tunes.
Okay, well, something that's not more proper, like
Alright,
something that's akin to Escape from the City. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
There you go, man. You got
Oh no!
Sonic.
Metal Sonic to be continued. And nobody gave a fuck because this game is bland as fuck.
Actually,
Anyway.
to give it credit, there were a lot of people actually excited for Metal coming back in that regard.
I guess. Anyway, here's the normal ending.
Again, gotta give credit where it is due in that regard.
Yeah, the one where you turn supersonic.
Basically, the way it works is if you get to that particular part. With all emeralds, if you manage to collect all, because you actually have control of Sonic, you can jump. Like you don't have control of his direction because he's running automatically, but you can control his jump. If you manage to get all the rings, which is something that you can only do after very short levels, so you know exactly where the rings are, so you know exactly where to jump, then your reward for getting all the rings is that thing where it turns into Supersonic. In my opinion, it's not really worth it, but it's there if you want to, I guess.
It's cool.
Whatever, so that was episode 1, everybody, but yeah, like we've been talking about, it doesn't end here because there's the to be continued in episode 2. So see you then.
Yeah.